Okay, firstly, may I thank our chieftain, John, for bestowing on me the honour of responding to the toast to the lassies. I did, although John clearly wanted a whole Scottish array of speakers, he gets a bit of an international crowd. But I think it would also have been interesting to have one of our Moldovan friends here giving the response to the toast to the lassies. But I understand that later this evening, after the festivities, our good friend here, Kenny Wright, will be going out to a nightclub in his kilt, at which point I'm sure that he will get an amazing response from the Moldovan lassies. I understand that a good speech has a lot of humour in it. So perhaps I can start with a joke, and again with another apology for my incredibly poor attempts at a Scottish accent. So some of you may know that in the United Kingdom we have a monarch, Queen Elizabeth, who's been on the throne now for 60 years, and her heir in waiting, Prince Charles, obviously has to amuse himself by doing good deeds and other charitable works, since he's clearly going to have to wait a very long time until he becomes king. So he was recently being shown around a hospital in Glasgow in Scotland. And he was coming towards the end of his visit, and he's shown into a ward with a number of patients who show no obvious signs of injury. But, you know, being a man of the people, he likes to chat to everyone, so he goes up to the first man he sees, and the man proclaims to him, "Fair for your honest, sonsy face, great chieftain of the pudding race, aboon the you take your place, and stripe or firm, well are your waddy or grace and wrongs may have." So Prince Charles is somewhat taken aback by this, of course, so he decides, well, let me just move to the next patient. And immediately the next patient launches in. "Some have meat and cannot eat, some would eat that want it, but we have meat and we can eat, and say the Lord be thanked." So Prince Charles is getting pretty bemused and confused by all of this, so he moves on to the next patient, who says, "Wee sleekit cowrin timorous beastie, oh what a panic's in thy breastie. Thou needna start away so hasty with bickering brattle. He would be late to run and chase thee with murdering prattle." So the prince sort of goes over to the guy, the doctor who's taking him around. He says, "So you've saved the psychiatric ward for last then, have you?" And so the doctor says, no, this is the serious burns unit." Okay, so right, back to the theme of the speech. Back to the response. So indeed I must also thank Alexei for his toast to the lassies, and for his possibly complimentary words about and when I was asked to make this response, rather like Alexei, I had never done such a thing before, so I did some research into what might be required. And the most succinct description I found of my role was that I was supposed to be savaging lads' crude disposition and social inferiority. I don't know, I think maybe the social inferiority I might perhaps question, but clearly I don't need to dwell at all on man's crude disposition, since Alexei has quite ably demonstrated that. So, as I'm sure you know, some of you may know that I'm probably not the best qualified to discuss the merits of manhood, so I thought want to see what the board himself, sorry, that should be the Bard himself, Robbie Burns, has to say. Well, he did say that a man's a man for all that. But all what, you may but I do say that perhaps we women should be grateful that most men are not like Burns, because it would appear that he merely needed to be moved to write a poem about a woman, and a child would arrive shortly. He was most noted for his romantic nature and his humour and his honesty, and indeed, seriously, read the 9-inch poem, and you will come to see that it's perhaps rather brutal honesty in his work. But he was something of a man of contradictions, and some have even suggested that he was a feminist. But, however, there is some evidence to suggest that he might have had certain feminist leanings, because after all, he wrote, while Europe's eye is fixed on mighty things, the fate of empires and the fall of kings, while quacks of state must each produce his plan, and even children lisp the rights of man, amid this mighty fuss, just let me mention, the rights of women merit some attention. And on this basis, perhaps, unlike Alexei, I assume that in fact Burns would sympathise with the view that women might make better political leaders. And may I suggest that perhaps there are many here in Moldova who pine for the days when a woman was Prime Minister, and indeed things were surely better. Oh, bad joke. But indeed, perhaps in my role this evening, I should be trying to identify some of the finer points of the male character which we can all appreciate. I seem to be lost but perhaps I can summarise it by saying that men are rather like kitchen blenders. You know you need one, but you're not quite sure why. And indeed, perhaps Alexei is right that men should not try to understand women, nor indeed assume to understand what women want in a man. I have to say I'm still not quite sure about what it was about the 9 inches will please a lady. Rather, perhaps men should merely accept the superiority of women's minds, if not their social superiority. Burns himself came to this realisation at a young age. The poem, The Lass of Cessnock Banks, which was written by Burns when he was only 17 years old, and which Alexei quoted a couple of verses from earlier, it goes on for quite a few more verses and comes to an end at verse 14, and it ends thus. But it is not her air, her form, her face, though matching beauty's fabled queen. 'Tis the mind that shines in every grace, and chiefly in her rougasheen. And Burns himself described himself as inconstant, a trait, no doubt, which could apply, of course, to many men. But he was constant in that particular reverence that he had for women's minds. Again, a trait which we can all appreciate, I'm sure. And I would just like to finish by acknowledging that he did appreciate this